He just wanted to buy a tool and get to work. But when an elderly white couple falsely accused him of theft and then threatened to kill him, the store turned into a pressure cooker of lies, fear, and raw truth. And what happened next? Caught on camera, witnessed by everyone, instant karma delivered in full. Terence Braxton pulled into the parking lot of Brookshire Tools and Supply like he had 100 times before. It was a warm Saturday afternoon in Tallahassee, and he had a job lined up across town in a duplex off Holt Avenue. A quick run-in, grab a voltage tester and maybe some wire strippers if they were on sale, and he'd be on his way. That was the plan. Simple, routine, nothing unusual. As he stepped through the automatic doors, he gave a nod to the older man behind the counter. The store smelled of sawdust, oil, and rubber. Comfortable, honest smells. The kind of place where the shelves were still metal, not plastic, and the prices were handwritten on orange tags. He liked places like this. No corporate flash, just grit and gear. Terence moved to aisle 4, the electrical section, and began scanning labels. He ran through his mental list of what the week ahead might bring. A breaker job Tuesday, lighting fixtures on Wednesday, maybe even a rewiring gig next weekend if Mr. Morris confirmed. He didn't notice them at first. An elderly couple, man in a denim vest, woman with tightly curled grey hair and a green cardigan. They were standing near the opposite shelf, watching him. At first, he thought nothing of it. People get confused in stores. But when he moved a few steps down the aisle, they followed. Quietly, closely. His instincts flared. He'd been through enough to know the feeling of being watched, not with curiosity, with suspicion. Still, he said nothing. He picked up the voltage tester he liked and a coil of Romex, then headed toward the checkout. That's when the whisper hit him like a punch. They're always up to something. Terence froze. This wasn't going to be routine after all. Terence didn't turn around at first. He just stood there, his hands tightening slightly around the voltage tester package. The words the man whispered, "They're always up to something," hung in the air like smoke. Not shouted, not even clearly spoken, but deliberate, meant to be heard. He knew that if he reacted too quickly, too strongly, the situation could spiral. He'd seen it happen before, black men labeled as threats just for defending themselves. So, he took a deep breath and kept walking, slow and deliberate, heading for the front counter. Then came the next blow. Loud this time, shrill and theatrical. "There he is. That's him. I saw him put something in his pocket." The voice was the woman's, high-pitched, trembling with fake panic. Terence turned, calmly but firmly. She was pointing right at him, her eyes wide, her hand clutching her purse like a stage prop. "I told you," the old man said, stepping forward. "You gonna let him walk out? He was following us. He stole something." Terence held out his arms. He was wearing a fitted black t-shirt, no jacket, no pockets, nothing to hide. "I didn't take anything," he said evenly. "You're way out of line." "You've got a drill bit in your coat," the woman shouted again. "I don't even have a coat," Terence replied, arms still wide. Customers were beginning to look. A woman near the front wore gardening gloves and held her phone up cautiously. A man by the paint aisle turned to watch. The cashier, a young woman named Maribel, stood frozen, her eyes wide. Then came the worst threat yet. The old man leaned in and growled, low but clear, "You're not walking out of here unless it's in cuffs, or a body bag." Now Terence wasn't the only one listening, and things were about to explode. The store went quiet, not peaceful quiet, heavy quiet, that kind of silence where everyone senses something could snap at any moment. Terence didn't flinch. He didn't back down either. Instead, he took one step back, a measured move to create space between him and the elderly man who just threatened his life. Not fear, calculation. He wasn't giving them what they wanted. No sudden movements, no raised voice, no anger they could twist. "I don't want any trouble," Terence said clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I came in here to buy one thing. That's it. You people think you can just do whatever you want," the man snapped, his finger jabbing toward Terence's chest. Terence narrowed his eyes. "You mean shop without being followed? You looked at my wife like a damn criminal." Terence shook his head. "I looked at her because she was tailing me like I was one." From the paint aisle, a man in a ball cap raised his voice. "I've been standing here since they came in. He didn't do anything." The old woman's face twisted. "Mind your own business." "Nah," the man said. "This is my business now." Across the store, a woman with silver braids and sawdust on her apron crossed her arms. "She's lying. I heard her change the story twice." "I was reading product labels," Terence said. "You call that lurking?" The woman with the cardigan snapped. "You did steal it. I saw you." "I'm in a t-shirt. Where would I even hide it?" Eyes turned. Phones came up. The customers weren't just watching now, they were documenting. And in that moment, something shifted. This wasn't just his word against theirs anymore. This was truth against a lie unraveling in real time. Maribel stood behind the counter, hands trembling beneath the register. She couldn't move, could barely breathe. But she heard it. That sentence, cuffs or a body bag. And she knew instantly this wasn't just a shouting match. It was dangerous. She glanced at Terence, calm, hands still open, voice steady. Then at the older man, Stuart, who had stepped in close, his jaw tight, his hand hovering near his coat pocket. It wasn't hard to imagine what he might be reaching for. Terence clocked the movement too. "I'm wearing a t-shirt," he repeated, slowly. "No pockets, no coat, nothing to hide." The woman screamed, "He threatened me. Get this on camera." Her voice shrieked as she pulled out her phone and began recording, flipping the narrative with stunning speed. "I never said a word to her," Terence said, but the chaos was building now. Shoppers were on edge. Some stepped back, others lifted their phones higher. Still, no one intervened. That's when Stuart muttered something so low only a few nearby heard it. "You come near my wife again, I swear." "Don't finish that sentence," Terence warned, voice low but cutting. "You think I'm scared of you?" Stuart didn't back down. "I think you should be." The air in the store turned electric. One wrong move, and this place would erupt. Maribel's hand slid beneath the counter, fingers shaking until they found the panic button. She pressed it. No one noticed the faint click, but outside, on the edge of the city, sirens had already begun to wail. Faint, then louder. Help was on the way. Inside, Stuart squared his shoulders again. Terence didn't flinch. He kept his hands visible, because he knew this kind of moment had destroyed lives before. The sound of sirens sliced through the thick Florida air, growing louder with every passing second. Inside Brookshire Tools, tension held the room hostage. All eyes flicked between Terence, still standing firm, hands open, and Stuart, whose lip curled in frustration as the sound approached. Dennis, the assistant manager, appeared from the back room, clipboard in hand. His limp slowed him, but his presence calmed the silence like a teacher walking into a classroom fight. "What's going on here?" he asked. Delilah wasted no time. "He threatened us. He tried to steal something and said he'd hurt me if I told." Dennis glanced at Terence, then at the crowd, then at Stuart, whose hand was still near his jacket pocket. Dennis wasn't rattled. "Sir," he said, voice firm, "did you threaten this man?" "He's dangerous," Delilah shrieked. "You should be asking him." Dennis didn't blink. "I asked your husband a question." Before Stuart could respond, the sirens reached the lot. Doors slammed outside. Everyone froze again. Terence didn't move, because he knew. Even though the truth was on his side, even though half the store had seen everything, this next moment mattered more than all of it. One misstep, and he'd be the headline. The doors opened fast. 2 officers entered, one already speaking into his shoulder mic. Maribel raised her voice clearly for the first time. "I hit the panic button. It's not what it looks like." Delilah jumped in, pointing, her voice panicked. "That man, he followed us, threatened us. I think he has something on him." Terence raised both arms calmly. "Check me, check the cameras. Ask anyone here." The officer turned to the crowd. "Anyone see what happened?" The man in the ball cap raised his phone. "Yeah. We saw everything." And finally the lies began to crumble. The officer's eyes scanned the room. Customers began nodding, speaking up, no longer silent bystanders. "He didn't do a thing," said the man in the ball cap, holding up his phone. "They followed him, provoked him, and when that didn't work, they made a scene." Another voice chimed in, firm and steady. The woman with silver braids. She called him a thief out loud. Then when he asked her to back off, the husband threatened him. Delilah's mouth fell open. "You're taking his side?" "No," the woman said without hesitation. "I'm telling the truth." Dennis stepped up beside them. "We've got camera footage to back all this. Multiple angles. The man didn't do anything wrong. But the older gentleman, he made a threat. Loud enough for everyone to hear it." The officer gave a slow nod. "Let's review the footage." Delilah's panic rose fast now. "Wait, what? What for? I didn't do anything. I was scared." "You made a false claim," the officer said calmly. "And your husband made a credible threat. But I'm the victim. You claimed he had something hidden, that he threatened you." "Both were false," he explained. Delilah took a step back, knocking into a rack of safety goggles. "You can't arrest me for being scared." "No," the officer replied evenly, "but we can for filing a false report, and you made it loudly. In public. On camera." Then, just as the officer reached for his cuffs, Delilah bolted. Her purse hit the ground, scattering its contents as she ran full speed toward the exit. The automatic doors hissed open. Her footsteps echoed across the pavement like thunder. One officer gave chase, disappearing into the parking lot. The other stayed behind, calmly radioing it in. Inside, everyone stared after her. The truth had come crashing in, but it wasn't finished yet. As the doors closed behind the fleeing Delilah, the air inside the store felt scorched, like the aftermath of a lightning strike. The remaining officer stayed composed, but his eyes were sharp, scanning each face like pieces of a fast-unfolding puzzle. Terence hadn't moved. He still stood near the counter, voltage tester in hand, arms relaxed but visibly at his sides. The calm he projected wasn't just for show, it was survival. Years of knowing how quickly the narrative could flip if he so much as exhaled wrong. The officer turned to Stewart. "Sir, did you just make a threat in this store?" Stewart huffed, clearly flustered. "I didn't mean it like that. It was just words." Dennis stepped in. "Not when your hand was near your coat. Not after everything else that was said." Maribel, finally stepping out from behind the counter, added softly. "He said the words body bag. I hit the panic button right after that. I was scared." Stewart's mouth twisted. "You're all siding with him because you think it's the woke thing to do." "No," Maribel said, her voice shaking but steady. "I'm standing with the truth. He didn't do anything but shop." Another customer stepped forward, a younger man in a work vest with earbuds around his neck. "I work down at the tire shop on Mercer. I got it on video too if y'all need it. They followed him for 3 aisles." The officer nodded. "We'll collect everything." Near the window, Terence exhaled slowly. He wasn't smiling. There was no victory in proving innocence when it never should have been questioned to begin with. He looked out at the lot where the other officer had caught up with Delilah near a black SUV. She was shouting again, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. And this time, it was documented. Delilah was now seated in the back of a patrol car, her face pressed against the window, her hands gesturing wildly as if she still had control of the story. But inside the store, control had shifted. Dennis walked briskly from the back office, holding a tablet with the footage loaded and ready. He waved the remaining officer over. "We've got it all. Clear angles, timestamps, audio. He didn't steal anything. And they were the ones following him, not the other way around." The officer reviewed a short segment, watching as Terence quietly browsed products, while Stewart and Delilah lingered nearby, whispering and pointing. "This matches all the witness statements," the officer said. Terence stood nearby, arms finally lowering to his sides. "I just came in to buy a tool," he said quietly. "And you still can," Maribel added, stepping closer. "I already scanned it earlier." She handed him the bag with the voltage tester and receipt. "I'm sorry this happened to you," she whispered. "Really?" Terence nodded once. "You did the right thing when it counted." In the background, Stewart was pacing, his eyes darting toward the door, searching for a way out. But there wasn't one. The officer turned to him. "We'll need to take you in for questioning, sir. A formal statement and possible charges depending on the full review." "You can't be serious," Stewart barked. "She's the one who got scared." "You both escalated it," the officer replied. "And you made a direct threat, on camera. That's not going away." A final voice rose from the crowd. The woman with silver braids again. "That man," she pointed to Terence, "showed more calm than most people would in his shoes. And you treated him like a threat for existing." Silence followed, but the message was clear. This time the truth had backup. The store was still, not empty, but emotionally exhausted. Customers returned to their aisles slowly, some pretending to shop, others lingering near displays as if unsure whether to stay or go. The emotional weight of what just unfolded hadn't fully lifted. Terence stood at the register, holding his bag with the voltage tester inside. It was quiet in his hands, but everything else still echoed. Accusations, lies, panic, and one devastating threat that could have turned fatal. Dennis walked over and offered a firm handshake. "You kept your head, man. A lot of folks wouldn't have." Terence didn't say anything right away. He looked around. At Maribel, still standing behind the counter, pale but composed. At the officer walking Stewart gently toward the front door. At the rack where Delilah had knocked over safety goggles on her way out. He let out a slow breath. "Keeping my head doesn't mean I wasn't scared," he said finally. "It means I've seen how this goes. If I blinked wrong, they would have gotten what they wanted. A reaction. A headline." Maribel swallowed hard. "I didn't know what to do at first, but when he said that thing about the body bag, I just felt it. Something was wrong." "You saved this," Terence said quietly. "You really did." The young man from the tire shop approached, earbuds swinging from his neck. "You handled that better than most. Got the whole thing recorded. If they need more evidence." Terence nodded. "Appreciate it. All of it." "Need someone to walk you out?" Dennis offered. "No," Terence replied, stepping toward the doors. "I'm not afraid of walking out." The sliding doors opened. He walked slowly, calmly, with dignity. And for the first time that day, everyone watched him not with suspicion, but with respect. Just as Terence stepped outside, the summer air wrapped around him, humid, warm, and oddly comforting after the chill of what had nearly happened inside. But he hadn't even made it 10 steps before a voice called out, low and urgent. "Wait!" He turned, expecting Dennis or the officer, but it was the man in the ball cap, still holding his phone, still tense. He jogged up beside Terence, eyes locked on something in the distance. "They're still here," the man said. Terence's stomach clenched. "Who?" "Her husband. Stuart. He never got in the squad car. While the officer chased her, he circled back. He's inside. I just saw him duck behind aisle 6. Without another word, Terence turned back toward the store. The officer inside had just finished securing a statement when Terence and the witness returned. "He never left," the man in the cap told the officer. "He was hiding." The officer's expression sharpened instantly. He moved quickly but quietly, hand near his belt. A few workers joined in, guiding customers to stay back. Then, from behind a half-closed shelving unit near the plumbing aisle, they found Stuart crouched, red-faced, holding something wrapped in a flannel cloth. It wasn't a weapon, but it was damning, a store-owned drill bit, one he'd apparently slipped into his coat during the chaos. "You accused me of stealing," Terence said, eyes cold. And the whole time, Stuart didn't speak. He couldn't. He just looked down at the floor. The officer confiscated the bit and cuffed him on the spot. Delilah had lied. Stuart had threatened, and together they'd tried to ruin a man's life. But truth, cameras, and courage were stronger. As Stuart was escorted out, this time for real, Terence didn't celebrate. He just watched. Because justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it quietly wins.